Freshwater Fishing for Kids by Melanie Howard. In 2008, North Carolina's channel catfish record was broken by a man and his granddaughter fishing with a toy Barbie doll rod and reel. The fish was 2 inches longer than the rod. Your fishing pole tip dips. It's barely a tug. Maybe it's the bait bouncing off the bottom of the lake. But reeling in your fishing line, you spot a tiny walleye skimming the surface of the water. Your fish is barely bigger than your bait. The walleye is about halfway to the boat when you see the V shape slice into the water. Suddenly, the little walleye is dragged behind the waves. You almost lose your grip on the pole as the line runs out with a high whirring sound. A great weight yanks against you. You put the brace of the butt of the rod against your life vest. Your fishing pole nearly bends in half. You reel in, fighting the rod tip out of the water. Grandpa grabs the net. A large northern pike glares up at you from beneath the surface. Then the fish dives under the boat. With a great heave, you haul the pike back to the surface. Grandpa scoops the net into the water and flips the northern pike into the boat. The pike isn't hooked at all. Its teeth are clamped onto the walleye. Grandpa grins at you and you grin back. "Look at that green-eyed monster," he said, clapping you on the back. "The pike is longer than your arm. It's a keeper." Anglers new to the sport often start by fishing for sunfish. Sunfish come in many varieties, such as pumpkin seed and green. Bluegill, crappie, and black bass also belong to the sunfish family. Most sunfish reach a size of less than 8 inches long, but a black bass can be as long as 32 inches and weigh up to 22 pounds. Sunfish can be caught on simple weighted baits called jigs. They can also be caught on spinnerbaits, but often an angler will catch one using a float. This is known as bobber fishing. When bobber fishing, the angler keeps an eye on the float or bobber. The bobber dangles on a baited hook at a set depth of the water. If the fish hits the bait, then the bobber will be pulled underwater. The angler sets the hook when the float plunges under the water. Casting a bobber in a shallow area where there are weeds or sunken logs is a good way to catch sunfish. Sunfish are usually found in water that's no deeper than 30 feet. Bait is something used to attract fish. Spinnerbait is a fake bait with blades that spin when it's pulled through the water. People have been fishing for thousands of years. It was an important source of food. The first fishers used hooks made out of bone, wood, or stone. They tied the hooks to vines and pulled them by hand. The ancient Egyptians fished, and so did the Greeks and the Romans. The Chinese fished with bamboo rods and silk line as early as the 400 BCs. Fishing for sport started in the 1400s. People who fish for sport are fishing for fun and not just food. Since it began, sport fishing has grown more popular. It's become a tradition in many families. It's also inspired many TV shows and led to an explosion of modern fishing equipment. Many competitions have records that have sprung up around sport fishing. Freshwater fishing for food or sport in our bodies of water such as rivers and lakes. It's very popular in the United States. In fact, freshwater fishing has a Hall of Fame in Hayward, Wisconsin. The Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame and Museum displays equipment used for freshwater fishing over the years. It also keeps records of famous anglers and the largest freshwater fish caught around the world. More than 50,000 people visit the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame and Museum in Hayward, Wisconsin every year. Chapter 2. Hook, Line, and Sinker. Modern fishing has come from a long way from the stone hooks and vines. Today's freshwater anglers use a variety of fake baits and equipment, such as Sonar fish finders. A fish finder usually tells an angler the water depth. It also shows the fish swimming in the water. Freshwater anglers try to catch many kinds of fish. Many people enjoy fishing for largemouth bass because these fish are easier to catch. Most freshwater fishing is done with rods that go with bait casting, spin casting, and spinning rods. Rods used with bait casting reels are very stiff. This allows an angler to cast a heavy bait more easily. A rod used with spin casting reel is similar, but it's meant for a lighter bait and line. A rod used with a spinning reel is different. This rod's reel is mounted underneath the rod instead of on top. It's less ideal for casting, but it's more sensitive to a fish strike. Sonar is a device that uses sound waves to find underwater objects. Sonar stands for sound, navigation, and ranging. A rod and reel should be chosen based on the kind of fishing you're going to do. For example, if you're fishing for walleye with a jig, you should use a spinning rod and reel. Then you can feel when the fish bites. Experience also matters. It's much easier for an angler with little experience to cast using a spin casting reel than a bait casting reel. Going after large or tough fish requires more strength, patience, and skill. The equipment needed is also more varied. The white sturgeon is the largest freshwater fish in North America. It can grow as big as 1,500 pounds. To catch it, an angler may need a heavy-duty sea fishing rod and reel. Large catfish can also require a sea fishing rig. Unless you drop your bait straight over the side of the dock or boat, an angler must know how to cast. A cast is usually done overhead. But other types of casts include the horizontal, underhand, and flip. A good cast needs two things: accuracy and distance. The best way to learn both is to practice. You can practice casting before you even go out in the water. Set targets such as hula hoops out in your yard. Fit your line on a casting weight instead of a hooked lure. See if you can cast it in the middle of the target. You should try to cast at least 25 feet. With practice, you should get to where you can cast up to 50 feet or more, hitting your target. Getting a feel for when to release the line and still hit your target is something every angler needs to learn. To cast accurately, keep your eyes on the target. You're less likely to cast to the left or the right of the target if you keep looking at it. If you're casting a bait that sinks rather than floats, reel in faster when the bait hits the water to avoid snagging it on weeds. Then, slow down after about 6 feet. The farther the bait gets from the shore, the deeper the water is. When you slow down as you're reeling in, the bait begins to sink. This catches the attention of the fish swimming in the deeper water. A lure is a fake bait used in fishing. Like other fishing equipment, the bait should be chosen based on the type of fish you want to catch. For example, you should not be using a deep diving plug with 2 sets of hooks to catch a sunfish, but you might for a muskie. Like other fishing equipment, bait should be chosen based on the type of fish you want to catch. For example, you should not use a deep diving plug with 2 sets of hooks to catch a sunfish, but you might for a muskie. You'd usually not use bobber fish for northern pike, but many people bobber fish for trout. When it comes to fake and natural baits, the choice seems endless. Corn, crickets, shrimp, salamanders, eggs, frogs, and even squid can be used as bait. Baits that work for several kinds of fish include leeches, worms, and minnows. Anglers use many different kinds of fake baits, depending on what they hope to catch. Spinners, soft plastic lures, and diving, sinking, and surface plugs fill many anglers' tackle boxes. Baits such as jigs are often paired with natural baits such as worms to catch fish. No matter what you're fishing for, your gear takes a beating. It's important to check and maintain your equipment. Run your fingers over the last few feet of your line. It should feel smooth. If you detect a lot of roughness, follow your line until you reach a point where it feels smooth. Cut the bad line off. Chewed up line will snap easily. You don't want a northern pike to swim off with your favorite lure because you were fishing with a bad line. And if you're angling for a fish that can cut with its teeth, it's a good idea to protect your line and your bait by using a leader. A leader is a short piece of wire that connects a fishing line to the bait. Hooks will bend as you use them. You can bend a hook back into place with a pair of pliers. A bent hook won't hook a fish as well as a straight hook, and you don't want your fish to slip off during a fight. Hooks also get dull over time and need to be sharpened. Nets, stringers, and pliers are just a handful of items in your tackle box to keep an eye on. They're used often and tend to wear out. A stringer is a string, wire, or chain with snaps that hold the fish. Rods can also take a beating and need attention. Grips may need to be rewrapped, guides may need to be replaced, missing guides can cause a line to rub against your rod, and always repair broken guides so your rod performs well. Chapter 3. Fishing Safety. Make sure you keep your equipment well cared for and working properly also helps keep you safe. Safety is a big concern for anglers. Most anglers spend time fishing from a boat. Anytime you're in a boat, it's important to wear a life jacket. It's even the law. Choose a life jacket that fits you well and wear it every time you're out on the water. Replace it when it wears out or if you outgrow it. A life jacket could save your life. Hats, lightweight, long-sleeve clothing, sunglasses, and boots are safety equipment too. Anglers spend a lot of time in the sun, and they spend a lot of time around biting bugs. You want to guard against sunburn and bug bites. Boots, or even a sturdy pair of tennis shoes, will protect your feet from rocky shorelines and misplaced sharp objects, such as hooks. Getting hooked is pretty painful. Hooks are sharp and usually have a barb. When fishing near other people, be very careful when casting. Double check to make sure other people aren't going to get hit as you cast. Also, try not to yank your lure out of the water when reeling in. It could spring up and hit someone. Anglers need to protect their hands from some types of fish too. Fish often have sharp back fins and teeth. Most anglers handle fish barehanded, but the fish gloves will help protect your hands. Gloves also help you get a better grip of slippery fish so you can unhook them more quickly. A barb is a sharp piece of metal that extends from behind a fish hook's point. Chapter 4. Conservation. Most anglers have a great respect for fish and the environment. They show this by using catch and release and honoring fishing limits. Unhooking a fish quickly is important for catch and release. A fish's gills take oxygen from water. A fish out of the water can't breathe. Most anglers catch and release fish they don't plan to eat. This helps to conserve the fish population. Some anglers try to unhook the fish while it's still in the water. If it's not possible, the next option is to get the fish back in the water as soon as possible. Handle the fish with care and gripping it from behind the gills. Don't squeeze too hard. If the fish is very tired, you may need to move it gently through the water to revive it. A fish that comes back to the boat bleeding with damaged gills or likely hooked badly and rather should be kept instead of tossed back. It's unlikely to survive. If you're catching and keeping fish as part of your limit, try to return the healthy ones to the water and keep the hurt ones. Remember, the fishing only up to your limit is not just a good idea, it's also the law. Check with your State Department of Natural Resources to find how many fish you're allowed to legally keep. You also may need to buy a license, depending on your area. Your State Department of Natural Resources may also have activities or fishing clubs for you to join. When you're fishing, it's important to pay attention to how you affect the environment. Lead sinkers and fake baits, often containing lead, are small and easily misplaced. They can be lost in the water when a line snaps. Loons, ducks, swans, and other birds sometimes eat lost lead baits and sinkers. This gives them lead poisoning, which is deadly. Always try to be responsible with your baits and equipment. Part of being a good angler is keeping the environment clean. Never leave any part of your fishing gear behind. Littering with unwanted fishing gear such as a bad line and broken lures can even be worse than littering with pop cans and candy wrappers. Animals get tangled up in this discarded line, and birds sometimes use it when they make their nests. Chicks get caught in the line and then die. Most anglers really love nature. They work hard to protect the environment, and this makes sure that other anglers will also be able to enjoy fishing for years to come. Biodegradable line is new to the sport of fishing. Normally, fishing line takes 600 years to break down, but biodegradable line breaks down in just 5. The end.